I'm Ginny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm excited to be here today with Emily Deaton to talk about her article in the December issue of On Purpose Woman magazine. Emily, welcome and thanks for being with me.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
And I'm excited to talk about your article because you wrote an article. Oh, first, let me do this. Tell our viewers what you want them to know about you.
Yeah, I'm Emily Deaton. I'm from the Richmond, Virginia area, and I'm an editor and book coach at a company called KWE Publishing, and we publish primarily children's books and memoirs, but also some other genres. And I'm really passionate about getting to work with authors and help tell their stories.
Wonderful. And the head of KWE Publishing is Kim Ely, who is
Yes.
Kim Wells Ely, who is just a friend of mine, an amazing woman. So I bet it's probably a pretty cool place to work, I would think.
Yeah, it is. I really enjoy it.
You get to do what you love.
Yeah, no, I do.
It's just the way I get some of the articles for the magazine is I'm on a lot of email lists of people I
Mm,
know, and I'll get an article that comes in through a newsletter or a blog post. And in the newsletter for Kiwi Publishing, about a month ago, I guess, you had written something. I think you write for all the newsletters, I believe.
yeah.
And it was on banning books.
Mhm.
And it really spoke to me, and it's an issue that's important to me. So I asked you if I could use that in the magazine, and you graciously said yes.
Cool.
And you're here now for the writer's chat about that article. So let's start with what inspired you to talk about book banning.
Yeah, I've always had a love for reading and writing and just really anything related to books. And I've been really fortunate that I had some really great teachers, both in my younger years and in high school and college, who really helped inspire that love of reading and storytelling. And as I've continued to work with authors, like I get to see that and get to see what impact those different books have on the world and on other people. And recently, especially I know in the past several years, the topic of book bans has kind of come up a lot. And I know in the county where I went to school, there's been a pretty big spike in book bans. I believe over the past year it was like over 70 books have been banned in that county. So that kind of really got me interested in doing a little more research and kind of diving into the topic.
Mm. And you and I were chatting a little bit before we went
Mhm.
live here. There's a big gap in our ages here.
Yeah.
We both have read so many of these books that are now
Mhm.
on the banned list, and we read them in high school or junior high school,
Yeah.
or maybe elementary school in some cases. And they were books that were impactful and
Mhm.
told us about the world and just and about people and about
Mhm.
I love some of the coming of age stories that could make
Yeah.
you feel like you weren't alone and that sort of
Mhm.
thing as a teenager. So you share some history of book banning in
Mhm.
your article. And when did the first book ban occur in the United States and why did it happen?
Yeah, so the first book ban actually occurred before the United States was even its own country yet. It occurred in 1637, and it was a book that came out in Quincy, Massachusetts, and it kind of challenged puritanical beliefs of the time, which was kind of really taboo at the time. And obviously, book printing and the way that people consumed media was different back then, but people were not happy about it. And so they were like, we're not going to print this. We're not gonna, they didn't want that out kind of in the public, and they didn't want people challenging those viewpoints. So I thought that was really interesting that we hear a lot about book bans now, but like it's such an old concept, and even if book bans look different today, the idea of kind of banning content that certain groups or people don't like is not new. So
That is very interesting. And it was probably more than a book ban, it was probably a book burning, wasn't
yeah,
it?
no, it wasn't just like, oh, we're gonna not read this. It was like we're not gonna print
Right,
this. We're
right.
not gonna, yeah, have this out there at all. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, your article is really well researched and you share links to studies that support your viewpoint. And viewers can check on the link in this video to go to the magazine and read Emily's articles. We're not going to talk about the facts here today or the links of these studies that were done that support Emily's view and my view too, I will say. But we're going to talk about the impact that book bans can have on children.
Yeah.
One thing that I will share, though, is that a 2022 national poll of voters showed that 70% of voters opposed book bans in public libraries, and 74% of parents said they felt confident about the books their children's school libraries chose to put on the shelves. But despite this, book bans appear to keep happening. So let's talk about the impact that book bans can have on children. You started out talking about diversity.
Mhm.
What is that impact, or the lack of diversity, I guess, in books?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways that a lack of diversity in books can hurt children. I think having diverse books helps children be more empathetic and um, just kind and understanding of people and cultures and communities that are different from their own. And I know I've seen different studies suggest that it does increase literacy rates to have more diverse books, and also just like about the concept of books being windows versus mirrors for kids. And so like if a book is a window, it's something that you see someone else in and you see kind of another person's perspective. And when kids have books that are also mirrors, they tend to feel more seen and drawn to those books. And so it both like helps kids enjoy reading more and increases literacy rates, and also just I think promotes conversations and prevents kids from feeling fearful or confused about things they maybe don't know about or don't get to experience in their real life.
And they want to see themselves, right? They
Yeah,
want to
they
see.
do. I think everyone deserves to see themselves in those stories and books, and that even if it's not someone who, looks like you have a story that really resonates with you, and that's something that can stick with you like well beyond after you finish reading that book.
Put that in a very simple perspective, which is not near, didn't have nearly the impact that you're talking about. But I was a redhead.
Yeah.
As a little girl, I was the only one. I went to a
Mhm.
very small school. There were 20 children in my school. It was
Mhm.
just for our neighborhood. It was one teacher, one room.
Mhm.
It was very modern, and we weren't like, we had heat and all that stuff. But I remember the first time I saw a little redheaded girl in a book
Mhm.
because I hadn't seen any before. And I
Yeah.
just thought that was so special
Yeah.
because I was teased a lot also for the red hair.
Mhm.
So to see this little red-headed girl, and I had thought about that for decades until
Yeah.
you just mentioned it.
No.
So that's a very small thing. I could have probably
Mhm.
been fine with my life,
No,
but
but it's, yeah, nice to feel
I also
seen and like that's
didn't
me
feel
in that book.
seen.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also know that I lived in a very, very white community.
Mhm.
And while there were, African American families who lived within 7 or 8 miles, I
Mhm.
had never met an African American child, didn't
Mhm.
know anything about an African American child until I
Mhm.
went into seventh grade. And there were a couple of African American kids in my junior high.
Mhm.
Then in ninth grade, the school's fully integrated. And so, we were all together. But I remember feeling so uncomfortable in
Mhm.
that first few days of school because I didn't know anything. And I think a book would have helped me to understand
Mhm.
that they're really here are the similarities, here are maybe
Yeah.
some differences, here are the cultural things, to just feel more equipped to do that. And that's something else I
Mhm.
hadn't thought about until I started preparing for this interview today. So
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
your point is so well made with
Yeah, I
that.
think that's really interesting though, and that yeah, there's so many situations where those books can be helpful, and just
Yeah.
whether that's
Yeah.
like easing people's anxieties or just like helping kids feel like they can better understand and like are better equipped to handle the world, even though obviously when you're younger you're not thinking in those terms. But just that you get to see that, and maybe it's easier for kids to make friends with people who are look different or come from different places, that yeah, it can just really be valuable, I think.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. What about the concern that some have about age inappropriate material being made available to their children? I mean, that's a valid concern, isn't it?
I think it is, and I know that I think it depends, of course, if parents, typically, I think these concerns come from parents or organizations. I would suggest in that case that if parents are able to read the book in question, because I think a lot of the times it's easy to get caught up in like hearing what reviews say or what certain places on the media or whatever saying about that book. But if you're able to read it, and also if you're able to talk with that teacher maybe that's assigning the book and say, hey, like, what are your thoughts about, like, why are you doing this? Because it might be a reason that you're weren't thinking about or that you wouldn't expect. And so I think for the most part, there's a consensus that obviously you don't want to show, young children graphic material or anything like that. But there's a difference between that and a topic that maybe you don't completely agree with, or a book that has a different ideology than yours. But Um, and I think that it's important to have for children and just the general public to have access to all of those different viewpoints. And so yeah, I feel like you're concerned, go talk to like that teacher or read the book and kind of figure out where their perspective is coming from, because it might be something you didn't think of. You're like, oh well, that makes sense. So yeah.
And and sometimes I think we probably don't even realize what's age appropriate and what isn't.
Mhm. Yeah.
It really makes me uncomfortable, just
Hmm.
some generic we and me.
Hmm.
I may want to hide that from my child because I don't want to deal with whatever is making me
Hmm.
uncomfortable,
Yeah.
where it could be completely appropriate for the child to understand at least an aspect of that.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking specifically about, the civil rights and, you
Yeah.
know, slavery and all of that.
Hmm.
There are ways that small children. I remember my
Hmm.
son coming home from third grade one time, and he had made
Hmm.
friends with a little African American boy named Jonathan, and
Hmm.
he came home and they had learned a story about the bus situation. And
Yeah.
he was asking me questions because he said, does that mean that Jonathan couldn't sit on the bus with me?
Hmm.
And I said, it does. Back
Yeah.
then, it did mean that. And he gave me this earnest look. He goes, but why, mommy?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
And it was so beautiful to see this innocence.
Hmm.
Wasn't, but I think some people are concerned about their children feeling bad or feeling sad about it. It's okay if they have feelings about it,
Yeah.
I think. But
Yeah.
he was curious about why did that happen? Who did
Hmm.
that?
Yeah.
What
No.
was the history behind it? And he was given enough information that he could absorb. He wasn't given
Hmm.
all the other stuff.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
overwhelming. Yeah.
Yes, but
Mhm.
he could make it personal because, and
Yeah.
he did that on his own. The teacher didn't point that out.
Yeah.
Oh, you
No.
and Jonathan,
Wouldn't have.
he
Yeah.
was very curious and very disturbed by that a little bit. And I
Yeah.
was okay with him being disturbed
No.
by that because
No.
it
I think
opened
that's a
up.
good thing to be disturbed by, and that he
Exactly.
probably was able to be a lot more of just again an empathetic person, and to be able to see like that's not right, and that like you said, they weren't overwhelming him with information or again being uh graphic or things like that. But there's a way you can talk about difficult subjects or history that is age appropriate, but still tells the truth and still teaches people. And I think that's important.
I think it's very important. Yes. And acting on those fears that some may have about, is a slippery slope because they can lead to, censorship. And what are
Mhm.
your concerns about that?
I think that, I mean, a lot of my concerns are just that it's limiting people's viewpoints in the world and also limiting kind of their um, ability maybe to be empathetic, and not again that you need a book to make you empathetic, but I think especially as children, like you were saying, if you grew up and you didn't have many African Americans around you, or you've never maybe seen um, like a LGBTQ family, what that looks like, then you don't know how to maybe handle that situation once you encounter it. But if you're reading about that as a child, I think then you're able to make sense of it and say, oh, that's normal. That's, they're just like everyone else. It's not, it's interesting, and you get to learn maybe their differences and similarities between each other. But I think that when you cut off that ability to even learn about those things, that you're really just limiting um, people's ability both to learn and just to like become better people. So I
Good
think that
humans, yeah.
yeah, and I think for parents too, like it's you can learn a lot from children's books, and that's something I really like, that when like I'm working with authors, that we get to tell stories that maybe you can write about something hard that you experienced and it's still for children, but it doesn't have to be presented in a scary way, but that you're still telling that story and letting people feel seen. So I think that's
Mhm.
important. I think that's sad when people don't have access to that, because um, it just really limits kind of your worldview.
Yeah. Well, you wrap up by saying that having conversations about books and the role in the world is essential. A wide
Mhm.
range of books create kinder, better educated, and more empathetic people. And you pretty much touched on that already. Do you want to say
Yeah,
any more about that?
yeah. Just I guess that I think that it's okay if you're someone who if you're an adult and you're curious about a book, or you hear about, something you don't understand. And I think that's something that we think about with children, that, oh, books are helping to teach them. And it's okay for that to be the case for adults too. And that if you um, want to learn more about different communities that, or just things you don't understand or don't have access to, books are a really great way to do that, and to not be afraid of learning more, and like not limiting yourself to what you have access to. Because as adults, obviously, even if there are, book bans in public schools, it's a little different when you're an adult. Obviously, you can access that, but also just to, I guess, encourage wherever you are, whether that means like going to your public school board, or just talking to your children, or reading books, diverse books with your kids. That's really important. So I think that, yeah, that's just something that is important. Like I said, I think it makes people a lot kinder and just more understanding.
Yeah. I just had another thought. You're bringing up all kinds of thoughts, Emily.
Yeah, I love that.
I
Yeah.
grew I grew up in the Cold War era and the
Mhm.
Cuban Missile Crisis,
Mhm.
and also this fear. We had this fear of Russians.
Yeah.
Russians were coming, the duck and cover, kind of hide under
Yeah,
your
drills. Yeah.
here's an atomic bomb. And I remember, even as a kid in junior high, starting to learn about, history and the
Mhm.
Russian population, and thinking that they were just these horrible people,
Mhm. Yeah.
because the Russian people were lumped into the Russian government. It was
Yeah.
like they're the ones that are coming to get us.
Yeah.
And, what would have been the impact if there had been just a book about a Russian family?
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
just, and that was a little early for the time, probably. And there may have been some. There may have been
Yeah.
some. They
Yeah.
weren't in my sphere. So, yeah, you've made so many great points here, Emily, about
Yeah.
how
Thank you. I really.
how it can harm children, limit children in their view of the world and their
Mhm.
ability to, I think, be successful out there in a
Yeah.
variety of situations and with different populations.
Mhm.
So I want to say to anybody watching, if you're watching this live or the replay, you can read Emily's article at the On Purpose Woman Global Community not Facebook, website. And that link is opwgc.com/magazine. It is also in the text of this video. Emily, how can our viewers find out more about you in KWE Publishing?
Yeah, the website for KWE Publishing is kiwipub.com, which is KWE, pub.com. And you can also reach out to me. I'm via email. I'm Emily at kiwipub.com, which is KWEPUB.com. And I also am starting to write a little on my own Substack, which is I'm just Emily Deaton on Substack, and also we have the Kiwi newsletter Substack. So yeah, I'm happy to be contacted in any of those places.
Okay. And those links will also be
Yeah,
in
so
the text
also
of this
yes.
video once we wrap this up today. So as a final thought, as we wrap this up, what final thought do you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I guess just that the value of having really diverse books is something that impacts both children and adults, and that I think it's really worthwhile to give yourself and give others the opportunity to explore different cultures and communities and connect with people through books, and that it's okay if you don't understand something, and that um, you can better understand things, I think, through diverse books, and that that's a way to kind of open doors and to again make people feel more connected and just kinder and more well educated. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Emily, thank you so much. And I appreciate I don't know how old you are. I'm not going to ask you to tell us. You don't have to, but you have you're a younger woman and have been, I guess, closer to that book reading in schools
Yeah,
than a lot
definitely.
of us. And so I really appreciate your perspective on it.
Yeah,
And you're
thank you.
very wise. Thank you for your
Thank you.
wisdom and your great writing skills and all of that. I really appreciate you sharing
Yeah,
that with
thank
your
you.
readers.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity again to do that. And that's really important to me to do. So thank you for, yeah, giving me that opportunity to
You're
reach out
welcome.
to
You're
more people.
welcome.
Yeah.
And I want to thank anyone who's watching the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show. For more information on the On Purpose Woman Global Community and magazine, please click on the links in this video and be sure to check out Emily's website and all of her contact information to find out more about her writing and also what she does there with KWE Publishing. And for more information and for more interviews with amazing women living their lives on purpose, check out our YouTube channel, which is also in the text of this video. Thanks again for watching.